But wait, you are the bank. I mean, you work for the bank. I bet your margins are pretty nice and fat.
Let's not talk about my margins, by the way. Being nice and fat. That's a nice shirt. Do they make it for men?
I hope you're having a great weekend. I want to do something a little bit different. There are 3 movies that I really like. Well, there's actually more than 3 movies. But there's 3 movies in the realm of business, finance, banking that I really like as a retired banker, former investment banker. And in no particular order, those movies are The Big Short, Margin Call, and Boiler Room. And I was watching Margin Call last night, and then I started again to watch The Big Short. And there's one scene that I found myself rewinding again, one of my favorite scenes in The Big Short. I think it'd be fun if we broke it down together because it's funny, it's informative, and it really resonates with me in lots of ways. And I thought it'd be fun, since it's the weekend, lighten things up a little bit, share that with you. So let me pull into the garage and let's get into this. All right, let's start with this scene with Jared Vennnett explaining what a mortgage bond used to be before the bankers got greedy.
This is your basic mortgage bond. All right? The originals were simple. They were just thousands of AAA mortgages bundled together, guaranteed by the U.S. government. The modern ones are different. They're private, and they're made up of layers of tranches.
If you haven't seen The Big Short, one of the great things about the movie is when there is a banking term or a term that's important to understand, but is not a term that the layman's going to understand, they define it and they do it in very interesting ways, like Margot Robbie in a bathtub or Anthony Bourdain making a seafood stew. So it makes it very interesting. Like, for instance, when they talk about tranches. So in this scene, Jared explains what the modern bond looks like. It's a whole bunch of mortgages packaged together, and a portion of it is AAA rated, really good mortgages with people with, 750 plus FICO scores that are not going to miss a payment. And then, of course, they threw in a whole bunch of subprime garbage in there as well.
Somewhere along the line, these B's and double B's went from a little risky to dog shit. Where's the trash?
Right behind you.
I'm talking rock bottom FICO scores. No income verification. Adjustable rates. Dog shit.
You gotta love the visual. Throwing the Jenga blocks in the garbage because these were garbage loans. No income, no asset, Nina loans, no income, no asset verification. Get a loan without them verifying that you even made money or had assets. It was crazy. And what was driving some of this? What was driving a big portion of this? People don't know this. But back in 2002, it was Republican President George W. Bush that proposed the American Dream Down Payment Fund with the idea that home ownership was a right, not a privilege, and that everyone should have the right to own a home. And in the name of fairness and equity, we've got to make sure that everybody can own a home. Well, obviously, to own a home, you have to get a mortgage because most people don't have that kind of cash at that time. $250,000, $300,000, $400,000, $150,000 to buy a home. So you need a mortgage. So if everyone deserves the right to be a homeowner, everyone deserves the right to get a mortgage. And thus, the government started guaranteeing and turning a blind eye to these Nina loans. No income, no asset verification. Ninja loans, no income, no job, no asset. I mean, it was absolutely nuts. It was just a matter of time before this was going to come crumbling down like a big Jenga block tower.
You're saying that at 8% the bonds fail, and we are already at 4%?
That's right.
If they go to 8, it's Armageddon.
Yeah, that's right.
How come nobody's talking about this?
Which leads us to this next part of the scene, which is very, very funny, because the quantitative people that work in the bank are the people crunching the numbers, but you never see them.
You're completely sure of the math.
Look at him. That's my quant.
Your what?
My quantitative. My math specialist. Look at him. You notice anything different about him? Look at his face.
That's pretty racist.
Look at his eyes.
Look at his face. Look at his eyes. He's wearing glasses, an Asian guy. This is fun. This movie's brilliant. Look, if you can't laugh at something like that, then you are too uptight. As a black man, I can tell you, when they make racist jokes like that playing on stereotypes, it's funny. That's a funny scene.
I'll give you a hint. His name's Yang. He won a national math competition in China. He doesn't even speak English. Yeah, I'm sure of the math.
Oh, man. This is what I think this might be one of my favorite Ryan Gosling roles. This and probably the movie Drive. Look at my quant. He's got to be good at math. He's a non-English speaking Asian. That's funny. Now look, hey, let's be big boys and big girls here. Some stereotypes are based on cultural phenomena or cultural things that are actually based on reality. For instance, Asian families put an emphasis on education, and they want their kids to be good at math and science. And they require that their kids spend a lot of time, studying and applying themselves, and they have high expectations. And there are some cultures, and it's not a race thing, there's some cultures where they tell their kids, oh, math is racist, and you're a victim. But they can't be a race thing because I have, for instance, many friends that are from Ghana and Nigeria, and they are wizards at math and science. Because in that culture, medicine and going into healthcare is culturally very important. I have a lot of Indian friends that I went to school with, and I've got to say that a lot of them are either in tech because they did very well in math and science and computer science, or they're doctors, surgeons, oncologists, because culturally that was what was expected of them. So this whole idea of hating Asians because they're expected to excel and to be disciplined and spend the long hours studying math and science is ridiculous. And math isn't racist. Ask my very intelligent and great at math Nigerian friends who are blacker and darker and more African American than yours truly. Anyway, I said I wanted to lighten up the mood today with this, so forgive my aside. Anyway, this next part really makes this a very funny part of this very great scene.
Actually, my name's Jiang, and I do speak English. Jared likes to say I don't because he thinks it makes me seem more authentic. And I got second in that national math competition.
I love it when a movie or a theater production makes great use of breaking the fourth wall. And this movie does that in spades. It does it several times, and it makes it very entertaining and very informative. Like I said before, they use breaking the fourth wall very often to explain what would financial terms and concepts that aren't in the layman's lexicon and understanding. And they're not complicated things. They even tell you in the movie, these aren't complicated, just bankers talking complicated terms to make them seem like they're smarter and know more than you. But we're going to explain it to you so that you understand this fairly simple concept. So the break of the fourth wall there was brilliant. And then one of the best insults in any movie is also in this next scene.
When you work for the bank, I bet your margins are pretty nice and fat.
Let's not talk about my margins, by the way. Being nice and fat. That's a nice shirt. Do they make it for men?
That's a nice shirt. Do they make it for men? That's great, man. Look, I worked for Arthur Andersen, Los Angeles practice, in the late 90s and early 2000s. My mother worked for Merrill Lynch in New York City. My cousin, who also has a degree in economics like I do, he worked for Goldman Sachs. I've worked for big banks, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and when you get into the corporate suites, it's like this in a lot of jobs, man. It's rough. It is rough. And depending where you're at, playing the dozens and having fun insults, it's all fun and games. Now, I know I have not been in corporate America now for like 7 or 8 years, so I don't really know that machine. Has it been that long? Yeah, it may have been less than that, but it gets rough up in the executive suites and the corporate suites. That was funny. That was funny. And that's a nice shirt, and you laugh at it. You have to have a thick skin. If you're in finance, you have to be thick skin. Pansies, crybabies, easily offended snowflakes have no place in the finance world, except for maybe customer service. And even that's rough because customer service, you're dealing with customers on the phone and they're not always nice. Anyway, I just love that insult. I laugh every time I see that. I anticipate that and Zhang's part when I watch this scene. I've seen this movie several times. It's one of my favorite finance movies. Like I said, it's a funny movie. Anyhow, let's move on with some other great parts of this scene where they explain why this is allowed to happen. When it came to the actual banks, they were making money hand over fist. No one wanted to stop this gravy train.
And no one's paying attention. No one is paying attention because the banks are too busy getting paid obscene fees to sell these bonds.
What Ryan Gosling says next, playing Jared Vennnett, totally hit home for me.
Aren't you the bank?
I work for the bank. I don't think like a bank.
I love that. I work for the bank. I don't think like the bank. And hey, this does hit home for me because I am the retired banker. A lot of people have negative ideas of bankers. They have negative idea of people in finance. They have negative idea of rich people because there's so many greedy, bad bankers and rich people. I wouldn't say a majority of rich people are bad and greedy, and definitely a majority of bankers aren't. But those are the ones that you always see that give you a bad rap. So you end up saying things like, yeah, I worked for X bank. For instance, I worked for Arthur Andersen as an economist, but I wasn't Arthur Andersen. I wasn't part of that whole Enron scandal. Once again, this is why, one of the personal reasons why I like this movie. Some things really resonate and hit home for me.
I work for the bank. I don't think like a bank. Big bank, small bank, I like to make money. All right?
Now, in this character, it's a little bit different, but I can understand that philosophy. I was in banking. I had my own finance company. And when everyone was doing these subprime mortgages and what have you, it was really icky. It was a really icky way to make business, to make money in business. But you're in business to make money, and you want to be successful and make as much money as you can ethically and honestly. So when I set up shop, got my broker's license, I went for the builders, working with the builders, spec homes, small commercial strip malls, and things like that. So I was in banking, and I think like a banker, but I wasn't a banker. I didn't want to rip people off. So that kind of hit home for me, getting a little personal on this. So let's finish up with some last parts of this clip that are very interesting.
A collateralized debt obligation. It's important to understand because it's what allowed a housing crisis to become a nationwide economic disaster. Here's world-famous chef Anthony Bourdain to explain.
So, what am I going to do? Throw all this unsold fish, which is the triple B level of the bond, in the garbage and take the loss? No way.
I'm telling you, if you haven't seen this movie, it's brilliant. If you're sensitive to language, though, it is about finance and it does take place on Wall Street, so the language is going to be definitely R-rated, and therefore the movie's rated R.
Being the crafty and morally onerous chef that I am, whatever crappy levels of the bond I don't sell, I throw into a seafood stew. See, it's not old fish. It's a whole new thing. And the best part is they're eating 3-day-old halibut. That is a CDO.
All right, so that's one of the great scenes, of many great scenes of this movie. And then Steve Carell's character at the end of this particular scene breaks down why people just don't trust nor like banks. And I think this pretty much sums it up.
The banks have given us 25% interest rates on credit cards. They have screwed us on student loans that we can never get out from under. Then this guy walks into my office and says, those same banks got greedy, they lost track of the market, and I can profit off of their stupidity.
And then he goes into a profanity-laden diatribe on why he wants to look into how he can make money off of the bank's greed. So let me know if you enjoyed this. I enjoyed making this video. It was fun. And I think I want to do it for maybe a couple more scenes from this movie. Also maybe show you some great scenes from the movie Margin Call. And perhaps even, if you like sales and finance, from Boiler Room. I think everyone else has done the Wolf of Wall Street, which that movie is really not my cup of tea, and a lot of people like it. But I like these other three movies as far as finance and banking and mortgage and the crisis and greed. I kind of like these three movies more. Once again, Margin Call, The Big Short, and Boiler Room. Have fun, folks. Please like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell.